After years of popularity and years of controversy, Marvel Comics has worked hard to essentially phase out the Punisher, or at least the Frank Castle iteration. So how did this all start? Frank Castle was created back in the 70s, serving as a villain in Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 129. But he would prove to be far too popular to remain as a one-off villain. He would become the poster boy for the edgy anti-heroes of the later 80s and 90s, alongside characters like Deadpool and Cable, the war veteran who could do nothing as his family was blown to bits in Central Park, who would don the iconic skull on his chest to wage a one-man war against crime, doing so as violent as he deemed necessary, serving as judge, jury, and executioner. 3 movies, a show, and several animated appearances later, and he was constantly reaching new heights, and his popularity started to bleed into the real world, just not in the way Marvel would have liked. The logo would be found emblazoned on military and law enforcement personnel. Notably, Chris Kyle used it during his service, which popularized its use even more in the military. But more concerningly for Marvel would be its use by white supremacist groups. I don't think it takes a genius to understand why the Punisher would become so popular amongst these groups. He represents the one-man army, the singular will to make a change that will put his ideology on top of the world. And there's a difference between being a fan of the character and, well, this use of the logo. I love the Punisher as a character. He's a lot of fun, especially in Garth Ennis' run where he's punching polar bears and dishing out all kinds of unruly justice. There's an appeal to how he delivers violence to those who deserve it, and he looks cool doing so. But the point of the Punisher is that he does things that we as human beings with proper morals cannot and should not. Yes, he hates criminals, but it's any criminal. Frank Castle is the type of man to shoot someone for jaywalking. He's someone who doesn't believe in the possibility of redemption. So not the greatest guy in the world. His code is a suggestion, his family's murder more often an excuse than a justification. He's unhinged violence. Certainly not someone that a person with authority should be representing. And it's reasonable to say that Marvel doesn't want their character to be associated with these groups, especially the ones whose ideologies are surrounded by hate. At the same time, they have not taken any legal action, even though people like the Punisher's co-creator Gary Conway have called them out to do so, and they're certainly well within their right to make some sort of copyright claim. Conway's thoughts as a whole are that the vigilante antihero is fundamentally a critique of the justice system, an example of social failure. So when cops put Punisher skulls on their cars, or members of the military wear Punisher skull patches, they're basically siding with an enemy of the system. They are embracing an outlaw mentality. Whether you think the Punisher is justified or not, whether you admire his code of ethics, he is an outlaw. He is a criminal. Police should not be embracing a criminal as their symbol. And what Marvel has done is show the Punisher interact with some cop fanboys in the comics. There, the cops freak out, but not in the way Frank expects. Rather than being fearful, they want to take pictures with him, to flex to their fellow officers and show off their Punisher decal on their car. In response, Frank tears it up and tells them they should be looking up to Captain America instead. And if he finds out that they're trying to imitate him in any way, he'll have new targets to hunt. And this is Marvel's only official statement on the matter. But even after all of this, Marvel is still choosing to push the Punisher away on the comic side. He will still be appearing in Daredevil Born Again, with John Bernthal reprising his role, so it's not like they're completely afraid of him, but it does seem like they want to break from the character. And this break started with Jason Aaron's run on the character. Aaron takes a very combative attitude towards the character of Frank. From the get-go, disagreeing with pretty much everything about the ideology and aura that surrounds him. Any of the goodwill is going to be torn down. And well, it still probably would have been just another Punisher run. Until it became clear that this was supposed to be the run to end all Punisher runs. It started with removing his skull in favor of a devilish design, representing how he joined the ninja cult The Hand. The run brought back his wife Maria. That was the whole crux of Frank joining the Hand. Their priest tempted Frank with the possibility of his family being brought back if he served them and became their Fist of the Beast. But this was not the first time someone had tempted the Punisher with his family being brought back. Someone had cloned them before, and in return he lit them all on fire, because they are already dead to him. But now he's convinced somehow. The Fist of the Beast is the Hand's ultimate weapon, the personification of death itself, with the fist receiving great powers. This run also showed how Frank had been groomed from a young age into becoming the Fist, essentially making his downfall predetermined. This is one of numerous retcons made that were going to be controversial to fans. Some of them were holdovers from Aaron's Max run, which was also controversial. The key one was the concept that Frank was always evil. He wasn't just a ticking time bomb or someone who went through one bad day, but someone who killed from the age of 10. He was a school bully, a social outcast due to how he acted. He had drawings of people dying and him killing them in some form of justice. He was always fantasizing about becoming the Punisher. Another key retcon made was that his wife wanted to divorce him before that day in the park. This was something that Aaron carried over from his Max run, where he chose to have Frank want to divorce his family because war had become his only love. This was the main idea explored in this run. That war was his true love, and that's why his relationship with his wife and family would become loveless. He was distant unless he was around death, attending executions, getting in bar fights, just to feel something. The root of their entire relationship was a lie as well. Frank's only friend was the one who wrote Maria love letters because he believed that her and Frank would be a good match. He was right, this young romance was one of the first times Frank felt happy, until that friend was killed in a car accident because Frank ignored him to spend time with Maria. In return, the teenage Frank found those responsible and beat them to death. He fell back into the violence and left to join the Marines right before Maria would tell him she was pregnant. A rushed marriage would occur and Frank went to be with his one love, leaving Maria behind in the process. The physical villain would literally be War and Ares, who considers Frank to be his favorite child. This was an Ares fearful that the Hand was trying to take away his son by giving him back Maria and ending his war. It wasn't just Maria, at least it wasn't supposed to be. Frank's children were brought back to life, but always as abominations. And so Frank had to kill them over and over. Yet once again, the retcons. His children were scared of him, considering him to be a man living in their home and not their loving father. He would try to come back and be that loving father, but because of this childhood trauma, he never could. He had a loss and depression, becoming less of a man each day without war. The run ends with Maria fully brought back to life and in full control of that. She despises Frank for who he is and for what he has done in the name of her and their children. She is the one to put a bullet in him so that some of Frank's older allies can take him down after his superpowered rampage. She somehow also gets a hold of Frank's assets and sells them and basically concludes their relationship forever. Yet before the heroes can decide what to finally do to him, he teleports himself away to Weird World, using the last remaining powers of the Fist of the Beast. On Weird World, he becomes some type of nomad protector to children. And that's how it ended. And so this run was controversial among all sorts of fans. I'm not a fan of the complete vilification of Frank Castle, because while I don't think he's a good dude, making him evil before that day in Central Park just isn't all that fun. There's merit and complexity to his character, and this just simplifies him down so much. Instead of being a man of tragedy, he's just another bad guy who went crazy. Some of the most fun Punisher moments are when he's not killing. It's when he's helping others. Like when he helped this little girl find her father when she was lost. Or when he gave money to the other tenants in his building to help them restart their lives. Like even if he's got a solid amount of villainy and insanity to him, he's still a worthwhile character. Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run has some of my favorite Punisher moments, where he is acknowledged as being ineffective and a psychopathic murderer, but he's not evil from day one. There's a dynamic between him and Daredevil that's interesting, and the two would meet again when the Punisher's hand and Daredevil's fist battled each other. Now this half of the run was not very good, but it concluded their conflict. Although the conclusion ended up being that maybe both of them were a bit out of it, and working with their respective plans and the magic that came with that had definitely scrambled their brains. Now, as said earlier, this is clearly supposed to be the run to end all Punisher runs. And if that were to be the case, this is a pretty good way to do it and tear down any goodwill people have of the character, his symbol, and his ideologies. This is a solid way to push the character to the side for a few years and let the controversies die down. But the cash cow always takes priority, because shortly after this concluded, Marvel announced the debut of a new Punisher named Joe Garrison, and I don't think it's possible to create a more generic looking character than this. His skull sucks. Frank's had real sauce to it. Frank's whole design is really cool in general. From the big skull to the white gloves, it's so simplistic and the right blend of being comic-y and realistic, especially when they throw a trench coat over the whole thing. And you would think that if you were to create a Punisher to separate from Frank Castle, it would be unique and maybe tied to the very people co-opting the symbol. But no, he's got basically the same origin. Elite special ops guy, former SHIELD in this case, whose family gets killed by criminals. Punisher without the sauce. His one-man revenge tour primarily involves the use of sci-fi weapons left over from SHIELD and going against Z-tier supervillains. Z-tier supervillains that I'm pretty sure he doesn't even kill. In fact, he doesn't do a whole lot of killing at all. He just sucks. While the Punisher is very clearly in a superhero world, he's at his best when the superhero part is secondary. Garrison was made to specifically fit into this superhero mold, and in the end he just becomes another killer anti-hero, while also trying too hard to be good. This was a character nobody cared about, and well, after 4 issues, the character has yet to reappear. I imagine that he will though, on the day Frank Castle returns to reclaim his name and symbol. Marvel loves nothing more than to make sure their comics line up with what the MCU is doing. And as said before, John Bernthal is on his way back. He plays a much more sympathetic version of the character even before the Aaron retcons.
No. Wait.
There's no chance Marvel would leave this opportunity on the table. They may be looking to dodge the firestorm surrounding his symbol. But make no mistake, Frank Castle will come back to kill this imposter and punish again.